Pastor Sharpton. Reverend.
Let me say that we said from the beginning, when we first heard of what happened to Ahmed, that we would be here until the end. And we are here, Reverend Baker and many other ministers, we're here at the end of what we hope will be justice. We want this mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, and this father, Marcus, to know that long after y'all are gone, we'll be here. They sat and heard some of the most racist statements made in a court of law that I've heard in the decades I've been out here. I've sat in many courtrooms. I've never sat in a courtroom where a victim was akin to an animal, talking about dirty toenails, like he was not even a human, but an animal that should have covered it up with socks. I've been in many courtrooms. I've never heard ministers that were praying called a lynch mob. I've never heard an attorney blatantly say, I don't want more black pastors, not pastors, black pastors in the courtroom. This has been the most racist, languaged court case that I've witnessed. I hope and pray that the jury will show this is the 21st year of a 21st century, and that we're not back in the days when people were treated different in Brunswick. I just pray for the strength of this family. I cannot tell you how much I admire Wanda having to take this. The fact that they mentioned she cried, I don't see how she didn't break down more. Hearing the characterizations of a child she brought in this world. Yes. I don't see how Marcus contained his anger. They act like we're not human. It is human for mothers to cry when their loved one, when the child that came out of their body has been taken and characterized in the way they was. I don't know if these lawyers have family. But we don't treat people's family like that. We don't call people's kids names like that. We don't call preachers names like that. Even ministers we disagree with. I don't know what kind of heart they have, but we have a heart of prayer. And we hope that God will bring us justice. Not a favor, just justice. Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you. As many gather around the world to celebrate a Thanksgiving Day, we give thanks that you gave us the mind to stand with those that need consolation and strength at this day. This is not about a turkey for us. This is about justice. This is about fairness. This is about, you told us in St. Matthew 18th chapter, that if you hurt one of my little ones, it's better that a millstone be. And we abiding by your word. We've told this mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, that if she put her faith in your hands, that you'd make a way out of no way. We told Marcus that if he would just let his anger translate into belief, that you'd make his enemies his footstool. And we depend on you today, Lord, to give us some justice and to give them a peace beyond understanding. We can't ask you to give Ahmed back, but we can ask you to give Ahmed justice so that the Ahmeds of the world will remember his name as the day that America made a breakthrough. Even here in Georgia, that there was a breakthrough. Bless these lawyers that have stood tall and strong amidst criticism. And bless all of us. We may have different tactics and different ways that we are active, but that we've stood in some operational unity to call on you. And if we get the victory, we will not gloat, brag, or strut. We'll give your name the glory and the praise unto thee. These blessings we ask in your name and for thy sake. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. That you can see Reverend Sharpton before the verdict. I had it confused with a different one. I'm sorry, I got it mixed up. But you can, as you know now, Travis was convicted of all counts, 9 counts, and every one of them was not guilty. Was guilty. So the power of prayer I think this is finally we got we got a win. I don't know if it's a win, but it's justification Give me your comments, gentlemen. I'm still happy it happened, and I think God answered prayers. How about you, from a youngster?
Man, I think it's just another display of the progress that we've made. For that to be an almost all-white jury and one black male, and for them to convict all three of those gentlemen, you know, I was hearing, I think what it comes down to is like when your older people talk about the case, and then some of them are like, you know, they're gonna just walk. And then you hear younger people like, maybe they're not gonna walk. So I think it just says a lot towards how much we've progressed and the expectations that we have for our court system now. Yeah.
So you see it as a youth being more positive about it?
I mean, because of
not knowing about the racism of the past.
Well, and I also think that history and the people that have died, maybe, you know, 50, 100 like years ago when they've died for this cause, right? We're finally seeing people who have been unyielding in their search for the mountaintop, right? That in this unyielding sense, we're finally seeing justice.
Okay.
So now we're in this space like, okay, my generation, like we're in this justice generation. What do we do with this new possibility?
What about Kyle from last week? The young 18-year-old that got off scot-free.
Well, I think...
And he killed 2 people.
Well, Kyle had a very different story. Kyle had $1 million legal team that was paid for by the Trump system. And then also the prosecutorial staff wasn't as good as the one in Georgia and DeKalb. And we have to, and I mean, they asked him really silly questions about the connection between video games and his violent crime. And there's really very foggy correlation between the two things. And there was actually a witness that said Kyle didn't pull out his gun until another gentleman pulled out his gun. So it was just a really foggy situation. Ahmaud Arbery was so clear that they just had to do it now. Yeah.
But you see in Arbery's case, they didn't bring that to, they didn't arrest him or even think about arresting him until 3 months after the case.
Yeah.
The mother had to go out there and get her own private detectives and really push it. The prosecutor that was fired, she's up on charges now.
Right.
And she told the father, what's his name? Father...
I can't remember his name.
Travis's father, to wash his hands and go home. Now,
Big
you
Bubba.
as a detective, what would that be a lead to do?
You know, it shows that the old system has not died out.
Okay.
And this was a slam dunk case, professionally speaking, from where I'm sitting. More so than the Kyle Rittenhour. This was a slam dunk case. But for black people to really wonder whether or not we would get the convictions that we got says a lot, because of our lack of faith in a system that has proven to be has proven to be unfaithful to us in the administration of justice. So every now and then we get these wins, but there's no consistent pattern of justice throughout this country. There isn't. And we've got a long way to go, you know. Yay, we had a black president. Okay, yay, we won a case here, yay. No, there is no consistency. You'll get these gratuitous offerings every now and then, but there is no consistency. With regard to the DA, the first DA that caught this case when it occurred. Now, Travis's father served as a police officer.
Yeah.
So he knew the law.
Greg.
Yeah, he knew the law. And for the prosecutor, and this is another thing, another problem we have systemically is with the district attorneys across the country. who, on many cases, fail to do their job. And their job is to advocate for the victim, regardless of who the defendant is. Police officer, drug dealer, regardless, the district attorney's job is to advocate for the victim, to help bring closure to the victim and the victim's family. What we saw in that district attorney was the incestuous relationship between a retired police officer, the system, and she's telling him, go home and wash your hands. Well, why? Because in the discharge of a weapon, we're going to have nitrates on your hands. That's forensic evidence. She is telling him what to do to destroy evidence. In the shooting, especially with a shotgun, we're going to have massive blood splatter. Close range, with a shotgun, there's going to be a blast of blood everywhere. So everybody's clothing should have been gathered. And I've had cases in shootings where people have been shot, blood splatter, I've got their sneakers, their pants, all of that goes to the lab. Then it was months before this case was actually brought forward. Ahmad's former coach, we were doing a joint lecture at American University earlier in the year, and he was working with the family on trying to get this whole issue out. And ironically, it was the first attorney for the guy who was taking the film that released the film because he believed by releasing the film, it would show that it was self-defense. I don't know what planet these people are living on.
Because Aubrey grabbed the gun.
Right. So he's claiming, and if you heard the summation, you can't claim self-defense when you're the one that provoked the situation. You know, so that it's something.
The citizen's arrest. That's where the...
And citizen's arrest.
You have to be witness to the crime.
Right, and they witnessed no crime.
Because the 911 call said, I see a black man running down the street.
Yeah, which is hard.
Which is what the jurors call for to take a second look at. And
I personally have been through that.
911.
I was attacked in Midtown in 1983 while working. I was running down Broadway from 40th Street to 35th Street.
Yeah.
Busy neighborhood.
And my partner was below ground. There's a passageway that runs from 35th and 6th to 40th Street and 6th Avenue in the subway.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
And two guys had set up to rob a guy, and they did. So my partner was chasing them in the passageway. I went up the stairs and ran down Broadway to cut them off at 35th Street, because there isn't an exit in between. Two cops from Midtown South saw me running, and, you know, black guy running, he did something.
Right.
I come down the subway, there's a uniformed police officer standing there, O'Shaughnessy. Hey, Spoon, how you doing? Hey, you know, he said, yeah, I heard Robbie on the radio, but my partner never got there. So my assumption is they might have doubled back on him. We already know the man got robbed. They might have doubled back on my partner. So I said, all right, I'm going, and it's a sloping, you go down a slope to get to the underpass, so you can't see to the other end until you get to the bottom. And as I'm walking, a guy grabs me. Where are you going? Where am I going? Where I'm going and what I'm doing is none of your business. Get your hands off me. Civilian clothes, dressed as usual, you know. And he says, I'm a cop. No badge. This is the thought, you know.
Ooh, no badge, no
You're
uniform.
black, I'm white, you got to do what I say. All right? Now, we had a chief.
But this is New York.
We had a chief Meehan in the 70s. He said, you will repel all attacks against you, and you will never come in and say anybody got your weapon from you, especially. Because back in the 70s, they used to jump cops and take their guns. So anyway, the guy had my arm, and I grabbed his wrist, I flipped him and threw him. I said, go on about your business. And O'Shaughnessy is standing maybe 20 feet away. And he just smiled. The guy got up and ran up on me again and punched me in the chest. No grown man's gonna punch a man in the chest. Not if you're serious. So when he hit me, I execute, all right? I kicked him in his throat. As I kicked him in his throat, I got hit from this side. I grabbed that guy. I took him down. Now, I'm with the two of them on the ground. I don't know who they are, and I really don't care. I took my gun out. It's time to fully execute this mission. And I heard 2 guys from my unit saw it, and they thought this guy was just messing with me initially, but they said when I kicked him in the throat, they knew it wasn't a joke. They ran over and jacked these guys with blackjacks. And we had a little tete-a-tete, and, oh, we'll shoot you. I said, well, you can draw. I've been shot at before. I've been hit. And we told the people, move out of the way. Get out the way. You guys think you're hot? Let's go. So long story short, the guys got away. We had to get an ambulance for the man, but we went to Midtown South with my sergeant and my inspector to find out who these guys were because they refused to identify themselves. I got their information. We had a little sit down with the commanding officer of Midtown South.
So they never showed their badge?
Oh, they did when we went back. We went to the precinct. Matter of fact, I was so angry, I gave my gun to my inspector. I said, you hold that, because I'm going to hurt somebody in here. And I told him, better me than one of my sons, because I'll kill you. But right now, I want to see your ID. And I told their captain, take notes, because when it's time to testify, you're either going to sink with them or you're going to be okay. I got their ID, I took the information, and, oh, come on, we're all brothers. No, I got one brother and he lives in New Hampshire. None of you are my brothers. I said, I'm going to flush the toilet, which is what I did. So I went to the feds that day and I opened a case with the FBI at 26 Federal Plaza. And their careers were, all right, so I've been through that. And I said to him, what'd you stop me for? Well, you were running. I see white people running all the time. I don't see policemen chasing them.
Yeah.
What'd you come up on me for? And why did you hit me?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I was scared. I said, well, you need to go home to mommy. You don't belong here. So I can imagine Ahmaud, who is not a police officer, who is not armed, being set upon by 3 men, and let alone not a handgun, but a shotgun.
Yeah.
And then they're going to talk about self-defense. We need to understand that the clock has not changed for many people in this country.
Yeah.
It has not changed for us, and it has not changed for them. To think that you could take a shotgun and just kill somebody because they're running through your neighborhood or what you claim is your neighborhood.
Well, the father's an ex-cop.
It doesn't mean anything. I've sent cops to prison.
But,
Doesn't mean anything.
Well,
You know, but I think
you're a
it's
cop.
but I think it's good to
Yeah.
reflect on the fact, like, when I was, I think 12 or 13, that's when Trayvon died, and it was the same situation,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah, and he wasn't a cop.
no, and Trayvon was walking through his neighborhood, and they let George Zimmerman go, and
Right.
for this guy, for these 3 men, the guy even recording the video,
There you go.
so you put
Brody.
behind bars.
But you see,
that's a
it
statement.
shows
Yeah.
this is the first time we've seen acting in concert
Yeah.
applied to white men. In
Yeah.
the murder of
Well,
Eric Garner,
this trial was, the world was watching, especially
with
after
all of them,
Kyle
yeah.
last week getting off scot-free.
Yeah.
So these 11 white people who were jurors were decent human beings and looked at the evidence. And I tell you, the prosecutor, you have to watch this woman, how she laid out the case.
yeah,
This is what's so important. And matter of fact, if you run item 2, I want everybody to see this woman in action. And I think this is what made the
Yeah.
jury see it clearly.
a tactician
She
at what
explained-
she did.
She,
Yeah,
she took us all and made us students of how you prosecute a case. All right, would you play that for me, please? Item 2.
Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, they committed 4 felonies against Ahmaud Arbery in violation of his personal liberty before he finally tried to run around their truck after running from them for 5 minutes. He was trying to get away from these strangers who were yelling at him, threatening to kill him. And then they killed him. Do you have any doubt that they committed all of the charges in the indictment? No. No. Remember, a reasonable doubt does not mean a vague or arbitrary doubt, but it's a doubt for which a reason can be given. In other words, you say it out loud. I doubt William Roddy Bryan was committing aggravated assault with his pickup truck because it was just reckless conduct. If you can honestly look each other in the eye and say that about Mr. Bryan with a straight face, ladies and gentlemen, you're the jury. You decide. This is your search for the truth. If you honestly can look at each other and say that out loud, then find him not guilty of the aggravated assault. Find him guilty of a lesser. Because you decide. You are Glenn County. I mean, today you are Glenn County. Remember, this isn't about having personal baggage back in the jury room. It's not about a point of view or an agenda or anything like that. That's not what's going on. Y'all are really, really smart, and you've paid really, really close attention to this case. You're going to determine what really happened based on the evidence, and then you're going to apply the law that the judge gives you to that evidence. It's not about being an advocate for anybody. It's your search for the truth. I suggest once again that you work from the bottom of the indictment. It's just going to be easier. Criminal attempt at false imprisonment, and then work your way through it. It'll help you logically. Remember party to a crime when you're talking about Greg McMichael and Mr. Bryan. You're going to get a verdict form. The state is asking you to fill it out this way, especially for Mr. Bryan and the aggravated assault with the pickup trucks. He's not guilty of simple assault. He's not guilty of reckless conduct. He's not guilty of reckless driving. He's guilty of aggravated assault for putting Ahmaud Arbery in reasonable apprehension, fear of receiving serious bodily injury. I overshot the road and forced him into a ditch. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. This isn't about whether these three men are good people or bad people. That's not what this is about. It's about responsibility. It's about holding people accountable and responsible for their actions. When they do something like this, they have to be held accountable and responsible. Nobody gets a free pass. Okay? Would you get a free pass? Who gets a free pass? No. The law basically says if you commit the crime, you're going to be held responsible. And ladies and gentlemen, when you come back with a guilty verdict on all the charges, this isn't saying somebody's a good person or a bad person. What you're saying is, you know you committed the crime. Now we know you committed the crime too. That's all it is. They know what they did. It's not like they don't know what they did. They know exactly what they did and they know why they did it. It's not a mystery to them. When you come back with your guilty verdict, all you're doing is telling them, we know what you did too. And we're going to hold you responsible for it. Because guess what you did? You turned this young man into that young man. That's what you did. For absolutely no good reason at all. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking you to find all three defendants guilty of all the charges in the indictment. Thank you very much.
That's my girl, man.
See, now, if we had prosecutors like that could lay it out simply.
Yeah.
Now, everybody in that room knew exactly what was the deal. She didn't mention that they called him the N-word or they shouted, "We'll blow your effing brains out." But he's running down the street and jogging. He lived a mile from there. It was his neighborhood, or near his neighborhood.
Right. But the acting in concert
You know,
that I talked about.
the whole point, and she laid it out so beautifully. It's much longer than this.
Yeah.
There's another session she gives, and she explains them the law. And how
malice murder,
malice
which
murder,
we call murder one.
murder one.
Murder one is intentional homicide. Intentional murder.
And
it's
he
with
was,
the intent.
Travis was the only one that convicted
Right,
of
for
that.
the intent. And For instance, if we get into a fight and I hit you and you fall down and hit your head and die, that's homicide.
Okay.
There's a difference between homicide, criminal negligent homicide, reckless homicide, and murder. Murder is with intent. And as
Okay.
she said, the statement was made, I'm going to blow your effing brains out.
Right.
So that's the malice. In Georgia, the word is malice, not intentional. It's not premeditated. They don't use premeditated. They use the term malice, murder. Okay? Because they verbally told him. They told him before. And remember, it's like trapping an animal. I think they made mention of it. You know, they
rat.
were trapping him.
Yeah, yeah.
And they pursued him. They cut him off here, cut him off there. He's not attacking you. And you've told him you're going to kill him. So whatever he is doing, he's trying to stay alive. He's trying to get out of the scenario.
Now, what if he had gotten hold of that gun and shot Travis?
If
that
he
would've
had
been
gotten hold of it,
self-defense.
remember, the father had a gun
That's
in
right.
the truck.
That's right. That's right.
So if he had used the shotgun, he couldn't justifiably use the shotgun on Travis if he disarmed Travis. But if the father has his gun, and the father is holding a gun on him, he could fire on the father, but he couldn't shoot Travis. Because you can only use necessary force to neutralize the situation. So if you get the gun away from Travis, he's got
Don't
no
shoot
weapon.
him.
Now
Don't
you've
shoot
got
him.
the weapon.
Don't shoot
All
him.
right, you don't shoot an unarmed man. But daddy has a gun. All right, so if daddy aims at you, you can fire on daddy.
Okay.
You see, so, and another thing, this woman was so tactful. She wove a garment of 600 count per square inch. That's a tight garment. They couldn't get out of that. She broke it down, picking apart their defense. And the worst thing that happened to them, as I was saying earlier, was when the first attorney, going back to a year and a half ago, released the video. Because he said, this will show that it was self-defense. Well, that was the worst thing he could have done. He did his client egregious harm by putting that video out. But the thing is that, as I said, the DA that is now under indictment, the police chief, all of those people are going to be, we have to follow those cases as well.
Yeah.
They cannot get a slap on the hand, especially a district attorney, because this is part of our problem that district attorneys, even in New York, Eric Garner was murdered. They only prosecuted or tried to prosecute one police officer, only one. There were 5 officers involved in that fracas. There were 3 men involved in this murder. We call it acting in concert.
So when you say that they're going to review these cases, is that just in Georgia?
In Georgia, the district attorney and the police chief and others have been indicted. Also, the Justice Department is picking up this case now.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So they might go over all old cases?
Well, not all old cases, everything relative to this immediate case, that's where they're
Okay.
going to start.
All right.
But if anybody has been egregiously affected by this old boy network,
Yeah.
you know, when Ken Thompson was the DA in Brooklyn, Ken went back and started reviewing cases that Charles Hines and his crooked behind was
Wow.
handling. And we've had 20 some odd men exonerated. Unfortunately, 1 or 2 died in prison before they could be released.
Yeah.
You see, and DA Gonzalez has continued that path. I worked with some of the guys in that unit years ago. And the thing is that you kill a person, you're killing the family. You're killing more than one person when you take a life. It's not just one person that's being affected. When there was a detective killed in Jamaica years ago, he was wrestling with a guy who robbed a bank. And the uniform guys responded, and they shot this black guy and killed him. Well, he was the detective. The white man he was fighting with was the bank robber.
Oh.
And that detective's
actually
brother,
happened.
right, this detective's brother was a New York State assemblyman.
Oh, wow.
From Brownsville. Now, the other brothers were so taken back by it, one committed suicide, the other one became an alcoholic.
Because they shot the wrong guy.
They shot the wrong guy, but they assumed the black guy got to be the bad guy. Just kill him and just,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So when you kill somebody, you're not just killing a person, you're killing a group of people. You're wiping out a number of people, as she said. What did she say? Ahmaud went from this to that.
Yeah.
He went from being this young man to that young man.
She was showing a picture of him
Yeah.
dead.
But she was a beautiful tactician in the way she closed every door of escape for them. And the gentleman that took the video,
Brody.
his conviction comes through the fact that he was aware of what was going on, and he was filming as opposed to dialing 911 and saying, listen, there's a situation here. So that's how he became part of the criminal act and acting in concert, because he knew what was going on, and every citizen has the right, has not the right, but the responsibility, not necessarily to intervene, but to call and notify the police that their presence is needed at a location, especially when you're with the people that are committing the crime.
That's true.
Well, the 911 call, they only played 30 seconds of it. The jury requested to hear it again, and McMichaels called and said there's a black man running down the street. So it was obvious why they went after him.
Well, they would want to set it up too. You see, it's just like that woman, what's her name, Janet, about the black man in Central Park with the birds, and she had her dog there.
Okay.
And people think they can call the police because they want to do the 911 call to set it up to show that, well, there was a problem
There's a paper
before
trail.
I did what I
Yeah.
did to you. You know, oh, there's a Negro man here, and blah, blah, blah. And this is another thing here. Here's another thing. Now, and you've got to understand racism and racists, because in the testimony, he's talking about defending himself against Ahmaud. It is always inferred that a black man is dangerous, that he's superhuman, and that white men, burly white men, men with guns, are now on the defensive when they're the ones who are attacking the black man. We saw it years ago in Los Angeles when King was beaten to the ground, Rodney King, 141 blows. And what did they say? Oh, he wouldn't stay down, like he was King Kong or Godzilla, and because this wouldn't stay down, we had to keep beating him. In the murder of Amadou Diallo, Sean Carroll said, well, I fired and the bullets had no effect on him. Oh, really?
How could he tell?
1,380 feet per second, a round hitting a person standing still had no effect on him. All right? A 9mm round is going to lift you off the ground in some cases. But they kept firing. Why? Because he's black, he's dangerous, we're white, we're afraid of these savages, and we had to overkill. Matter of fact, while he was laying on the ground, they shot him through the soles of his feet. And you've got to read and understand racist crackers when they open their mouth. The verbiage tells you what and who they are.
Well, see, you're fortunate to be in the business of policing and have all that experience. We that don't know this, we civilians that don't know the ins and outs, and think the law is on our side if we're fair-minded and do the right thing. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's you guys something really powerful, and I was just wanting to reflect on what the prosecutor was saying, and you know how she masterfully interweaved this idea that it's not about a cause, it's not about the idea of race. It was about doing the right thing, and it's like a unifying vision surrounding what is justice. How do we uphold this standard as the jury? And look, you know, to be said about that jury, although it was mostly white, it really was a jury of his peers. And so it kind of causes us to really reflect and ask ourselves the question, is America getting better? Or did this happen because America is getting better? Or did it happen because white people were finally able in that space to take their racial blinders off because she asked them to?
Well, what the point is a lesson for us. You know, all white people are not racist.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't say.
I mean, but
don't
we
think-
assumed that all white crackers are racist.
I don't want to call them crackers. But
I mean, I do, but I mean, you can't do that to yourself.
no.
Because Martin taught us that you should judge a person by the
Yeah.
content of his character,
We-
not by
like-
the color of his skin.
I think society
But
is.
we all
yeah.
look for that to be. The judge even
Yeah.
mentioned that there was there was racism involved when he found out that the other 11 black people were excluded from the jury.
Yeah.
So we're all looking for a Kyle case over again. But I said to myself when they came back early, I said, well, they come back this early, it can't be a not guilty plea. Because it'll take them a couple of weeks to convince themselves to go out there. After the Kyle verdict,
Yeah.
they didn't want to be as assumed to be racist.
Yeah.
I think that she just laid it out where they could do the right thing by just paying attention to the evidence.
And
And the evidence was overwhelming. So, I mean, justice really played a role in this, and it wasn't the color of the person's skin.
Well, that was the smart part. She didn't play into that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she didn't play
that's
into
She
right.
race.
didn't play into that. She said, this is not about whether these are good men or bad men.
That's right.
It's about responsibility for what they have done.
That's right.
And she said, when you come back with the guilty verdict, she said that in the summation.
Yeah.
You're gonna examine this, and you're gonna come back with the guilty
And she
verdict.
said,
That's what
can
she
you look
said.
in each other in the eye and say this man is not guilty of assault?
But do you think like America could be coming into a point where its ideas around justice
Yeah,
because
it always has
of
been.
no
It always has been a
no, it
just-
hasn't always been this
No.
way.
I mean, there have
The-
been just people out here.
Yeah, I'm talking about a just society
Well, it
So-
has been a just society at times.
at times. But I think, do you think because of the noise that people have made against injustice over these generations,
Yeah.
that jury?
I think the biggest problem was Donald Trump and how he just emboldened
I also think but
racism.
I agree with you, but when President Obama was in office, it wasn't just Trump being racist to President
Right.
Obama.
Well, that was a racism in the country. It just people were mad that a
Yeah,
ex-slave.
yeah,
was
because
president.
the moment that Obama was in office, right, the white folks had a bunch of guns, right? So
Well,
Well, you
they're
got-
afraid. I mean, when you're guilty of a cause of being racist all this time, and now you got a black president, they expected a black president to give all the power to black people.
Putney Swope.
yeah, but I don't,
know?
I don't, but I don't want to make it about race. I'm just saying that it just seems that
I mean, if you
America's
were-
having.
Yeah, if you were a slave owner and suddenly
of
a
like
black
yeah.
person became president, wouldn't you be afraid? Wouldn't you be scared?
No,
that,
I wouldn't. I wouldn't be
Well,
afraid.
I mean,
of,
if you were a slave owner. Now,
Well, we
that
saw this in
happened during
South
slavery
Africa
time.
with the closing of apartheid with the UNC when Nelson Mandela came out of prison. And they found that the blacks were nothing like the Afrikaners.
Yeah,
They were not like those neo-Nazis that were running the
that's
apartheid
right.
system.
Neo-Nazis.
And-
People don't
Yeah,
realize that.
and we have to remember where Nazism was first incubated.
yeah.
Adolf Hitler got the idea for his agenda from this country. 100 years ago, he was studying the American dynamic of government. He was studying the U.S. Congress and the Senate and the House of Representatives, where nearly 40% of all of your elected officials in the federal government were members of the Ku Klux Klan. And that's where he got the idea for his Third Reich. And he wrote
No,
about that
no,
in Mein
no,
Kampf. So
no,
let's
Mein
not
Kampf-
think about neo-Nazis. We were the
Mein-
catalyst for the
Mein
Nazi
Kampf
movement.
was my struggle. He was mad about what happened in World War I.
he wrote and said he got his ideas while examining the U.S. Congress, the isolationism.
He actually said that?
Yes, he wrote about that. He got the
Is that in
idea
Mein
from
Kampf?
examining this country. That's where he got his ideas. And we need to remember, they marched in Virginia saying the Jews will not replace us. We've got all kinds of things going on. And remember, 1919 we had the bloody summer of 1919, where thousands of black people were slaughtered in this country. Slaughtered. Not race riots, slaughters. And 100 years later, the same stuff has been going on. Whether it's Eric Garner or Tamir Rice or whomever, 100 years later, the same abuses have continued. And we've got this one.
Yeah.
I remember
But
looking at...
you look at the last few cases, like
I mean, the Floyd case was pretty big too.
you know,
Yeah,
this is a
Floyd.
case
Yeah.
from the Blake situation.
And Floyd was clear cut. You
Yeah.
know, that was another one. There was no way in the world he could not be found guilty
Yeah.
in that. The temerity just to sit in front of the camera as though, well, so what?
Yeah, I mean,
know.
but you know, I just think, I think that we've had so many cases like that in the past, and that we're like, there's no, like, how do you let guys off for the Rodney King situation? Like, how do you, like he was knocked, and there were so many cameras, they were like, ah. But it's just like now it's just different. And it's just like, I feel like people are more nervous to harm a black person now than they've ever been. Because there is a system of retribution, a system of justice if you take part on that. That's how I feel. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, you know, with this, the big lie about Trump being robbed, and we got to deal with this January 6th situation, and then some justice has to come out of that.
Yeah.
Now, I see, I mean, I don't understand how they let neo-Nazis run around, I mean, in this country. I can't understand that.
Did
But,
you hear about the guy with the shotgun, the shotgun revolver?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I want to ask this
It
question: if we're as Americans, right, and we're open to the idea of freedom and freedom of speech and freedom of press, I know it's a weird question to ask, but aren't neo-Nazis just kind of a part of that vision too?
The what?
Yeah.
They have the
What
right.
did you say?
Are they part of that
sorry.
vision?
No, I was saying, like, because we have freedom of speech, freedom of press.
Do the-
You know, neo-Nazis are kind of like a part of that vision. You know what I'm saying?
Neo-Nazis refers to Hitler.
No, they're
No,
new Nazis, so
but-
they're not. Oh, but
Neo-Nazis.
yeah, no, I'm saying like, never mind. It was just a weird point I was bringing. I was just thinking about something different.
No, they
this
don't
time.
have any justifications for supporting Hitler at this time. I mean, Hitler was a lunatic. I mean, he was a
Their whole
psychopath.
agenda,
Yeah.
their agenda, as they said, Jews will not replace us. And
Yeah.
we have to remember Bannon has worked with these folks
Yeah.
in Europe.
Yeah.
Ah,
After Bannon left the administration, he went to Europe.
That's
He
right.
bought up a villa
was
in
he
Rome.
the cause of them burning that church?
He has pushed against immigrants coming into Europe from the Middle East, from Africa. He's whelmed up the people to be anti-black and anti-anything other than European
Immigrant.
throughout Europe.
Yeah.
And it's as far as Israel.
White supremacy.
Yeah, in Israel. They have said we are a white nation. You can go on and see some of the statements by not heads of state, but political officers in the Israeli state, and the treatment that blacks get even in Israel. And there was even a guy took a hammer and killed this little black baby in the arms of the mother.
Wow.
You know, they don't want them, and they have the black people living in Dimona, which is next to a toxic waste dump. So this is across the globe. It's not something that's systemic just in the United States, but Bannon was involved in promoting this white ideology as people were fleeing Syria. You don't want these people coming in here. The anti-Muslim thing, it's all about the white Aryan presence.
And during the 50s and 60s, that was time when blacks left America and went to
I
Europe.
went to, yeah,
Like the best place to go. I mean, I was
right
in
after
Europe
World
in
War
the
I.
60s.
Yeah, many guys didn't come back
man.
after World War I.
Yeah, that's right. Blacks were, you know, you go to a white country and be the only black, and they're curious about what you're about.
Yeah.
When I was in
Especially the
Italy,
girls.
I was in Italy, what, about 8, 9 years ago, and we were singing in Italy. We're going to a senior citizen home, and as I'm walking up the stairs, I feel somebody, you know, messing with my hair. I thought it was one of the women in the choir. And then I hear, oh, magnifico. And I look back, and this old Italian lady has taken my hair, and she's magnifico, and she's draped it around her face. Oh, and she's just wrapping her face with my hair. And she was so enthralled to see me and be there with me, and I was asking somebody to interpret it. So, and kids stopped me in the street and said, you know, we wish we could grow hair like this. These are Italian kids. They know they're not white. The Italian kids were asking me, how long you been growing your hair? And we wish we could grow our hair like that. Because you have the black Madonna in Rome. You have the black, I didn't see a white Jesus when I went into any of the churches in France or in Italy. It's the black Madonna and child. They're well aware of the fact. But
And black women in Europe.
yeah, but even now, as you said, there are decent white people. Just like there are black people you don't want to be around, I don't want to be around.
Yeah.
All right? So, I mean, I'm coming up on the train today, and this woman has got this box with loud music playing. I'm like, what in the... I mean, it was loud. I'm like,
A woman.
Oh, yeah. I said, I wish a cop would get on the train. But you can't find a transit cop anymore. They're not working.
Yeah.
But there are good and bad in all groups.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, with my point about the neo-Nazis coexisting with everyone, it's just like America is this really diverse place of all these different ideologies. And, you know, like if someone's racist or whatever, that's kind of a part of the American narrative, right? But you also have people that are freedom fighters and justice bringers in this story. But it's when we get violent with each other and how it's kind of pulling into like politics, or it's just really strange. But I don't know.
Imagine what's going to happen in 22 if we don't get this right to vote.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, this is what our main theme has to be for the next year. To concentrate and get black people in particular to not give up and say, that's the way it's been, that's the way it's always going to be, or let Trump get away. Don't forget about Trump. Trump is behind, he's the stimulus for all this white supremacy. Because he's the poster child for racism. I mean...
But the governor of Virginia won, and he wasn't really a big Trump supporter. The new governor.
But because you got the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Right.
Willing to do anything to stay in power.
Yeah.
Because they know once they lose their power, that's it.
But now with the redistricting, the gerrymandering,
Yeah.
you know, this is what Obama was talking about years ago when he told the black caucus to get their boots on and get to work.
That's right.
Around these issues. And they slept on it.
Yeah.
And right now,
Well,
you have so much legislation that has to be addressed, and we cannot expect that the Department of Justice is going to address all of these issues.
They have to.
But it is an issue
have
that
to.
Biden is going to have to deal with.
all
well,
these
not
state
Biden, but the
laws
Attorney
can be
General. The
contradicted
Attorney
with
General.
a federal law. And
Right.
that's why this law has to be passed. That should be our main focus.
What law are you talking about? The voting right?
See, when
The right to vote.
the Supreme Court stabbed us in the back 7 years ago, or 6 years ago, and said that those southern states did not have to be monitored with regard to voting, because even Reagan put in more enforcements of the bill to protect people in that when a ballot is prepared, it has to be prepared not only in English, but in the language of the predominant grouping of the people. So if you have a lot of people, for instance, we have a lot of people in South Brooklyn that are Russian. The ballot has to be in Russian. If you're in Flushing, the ballot has to be in Korean, all right? That was Reagan that demanded that, to protect people's right to vote. Now the Supreme Court said, oh no, we don't need to monitor these people because they're good, they're behaving, and bam, just like that, not even Martin Luther King's cousin could vote at age 90.
Yeah,
She was told she can't vote. So these are the things now. You got the Supreme Court, which has gotten corrupted, and you have all these laws passed in 37 states now. They got to get on this right away. It's a critical issue.
A federal law and knocked it all out.
And the gerrymandering of the districts, they did it in New Orleans. They took New Orleans and annexed every section of New Orleans to the white community outside of New Orleans. So the black people had no control of what was going on in their quote-unquote area.
I tell you what, before we go, I just want to run one more piece for you. Those of you run item, was it 2 or?
So you did 2.
No, or is it 3?
You did Rev and you did the summation.
Well, that didn't have a number on it.
Oh.
I'm talking to the control company. Number 3. Run number 3 if you can. We got a few minutes, 9 minutes left. So this is a short piece.
We report again tonight on the fatal shooting of Ahmaud Arbery. This case is perhaps a sign of the times because so much was caught on tape, including the killing itself. Now more video has surfaced, and it offers clues about why Ahmaud may have walked through the construction site just moments before he was shot. Here's ABC's Steve Osinsami.
The Georgia family who owns the home under construction that's now part of the investigation into the shooting of an unarmed young black man a block away is now sharing video after video, some showing this unidentified person who began visiting the property in October and took nothing, who the homeowners now believe may have been coming for water. And these security camera videos showing a white couple showing children from the neighborhood. All kinds of people who the homeowners tell us were looking around, took nothing, didn't raise the neighbors' suspicions, and certainly weren't killed weeks later. Travis McMichael and his father, Greg, a former police officer, are charged with murdering 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery, seen here being killed in the street on February 23rd in Brunswick, Georgia. They told police they thought the young man was, quote, the suspect from the break-ins, and after seeing him here, 2 doors down, walking around the open construction site, they tried to make a citizen's arrest. The father's lawyers spoke out today.
The truth will reveal that this is not just another act of violent racism. Greg McMichael did not commit murder.
And let's bring in Steve Osinsami. Steve, the suspect's lawyer claims that there is exculpatory evidence in this case that might clear his client. Do we have any indication of what that might be?
They're claiming that there is another video, a video that they say shows the truth of what happened on February 23rd, the day that this young black man who was unarmed was gunned down in the middle of the street. They're not clear as to who recorded that video, what part of the confrontation this video shows. I did, Lindsay, however, check with state authorities who say at this point they are not confirming whether there is or is not a new video and whether it's relevant.
And if there
Lindsay?
is this new video, Steve, that they say holds the truth, have they suggested what that truth is?
Well, one of the things they're saying is that their client, which is Gregory McMichael, the father, isn't guilty of murder. It sounds like what they're sort of indicating is that he may not have been seen on tape, and he's not seen on tape directly shooting this young man. And so they're trying to argue that a murder charge for him is inappropriate at this point.
Okay. Steve Osinsami, thanks so much for your reporting as always.
I just played that to show you how confusing this whole thing can be. I mean, if you're just watching the news broadcast, you got to look totally into. I'm watching Law and Crime on 678 on cable, and they really get into it. I mean, they have a set of lawyers, and they show you actually what's happening in the courtroom, and then they analyze the different approaches.
Yeah.
to the law, and they explain the law. That's why this case was won, or the truth came out, because this prosecutor laid it down and made us talk to us like we were two, and actually brought everything out. And you can see for yourself what happened.
There was,
You're going to come back not guilty, and can you look each other in the eye and say that this guy didn't do this? Can you look to the next person next to you and say, this guy is not guilty? I mean, when you see all this evidence, you'll come out. It's your choice.
Yeah.
You can. I mean, she just fed it. Do the right thing. Talk about what you saw. Don't pay attention to the racist act, because you're going to be accused of racism.
Yeah. But
You're
we
being
need
accused of racism.
we need to understand. I was on court TV years ago with a Supreme Court justice from California.
Wow.
And he said, ladies and gentlemen, black judge, he says, I want you to understand, courts are not about truth.
Whoa.
And they're not. It's about who can present the best argument
Okay.
and convince the jury one way or the other.
So
Because the
that's-
jury is always the group of people that don't know really what's going on. I served on a jury a couple of years ago. As ironically enough, I was the jury foreman. And when the defense and the DA found out, and the judge, everybody was like, whoa, you know. But I wound up serving on the jury. But the thing is that facts and truth are not the same thing. They're not. So when you hear facts, you really need to be sure that what you're hearing is the truth. And I don't have time to get into it, but I can present facts, but they would not be truth. And a lot of people are convicted on facts, but the truth is they didn't commit the crime. So we need our young folks out there to stay in school, to study. We need good, solid attorneys to handle issues concerning our people, like this guy here. We need you to study.
You got a minute.
We need you to study to help your people. We need you to go to school to become a master tactician, just as you saw that lady there. We need men and women who have the expertise that Alton Maddox has in executing cases and eviscerating a questionable witness. We need you to go to school to apply yourself.
Hopefully, we have a young lawyer in front of us,
That's right.
a Morehouse grad, and he's going to law school when?
I'm going to law school next year. I got a job
year?
with the Department of Energy.
I forgot to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're going to work first.
Yeah, I'm excited.
To make enough money to pay for law school.
Not that much, but
Scholarship. Thank you for coming. The God in me loves the God in you. And stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience. Well, we have another minute for the Bronx.
Senator.
Go ahead, finish up.
Oh, man. Look, guys, you know, I think in this case we saw that, you know, we're leaning on towards the higher ideals of our country, towards the higher ideals of humanity. Everybody feels good. So if it comes towards the lower nature or the higher ideals, move towards the higher ideals, because everyone's going to sleep well at night, and we're all going to have a really good Thanksgiving now.
That's from the youth.
Yeah.
No, us old timers are seeing a new horizon. All white people aren't racist. Even they're Southerners. It's great to see that. I learned that in the Marine Corps. Or when I went to Denmark, and they're the friendliest people on the planet. Power to the people. God bless.
You don't even say the God in me loves the God in you thing.
That's right. He ran out of
I
time.
did.
No, you said power to the people. God bless.
Yeah. It's the God
I said it on the first one.
No, you
Oh, okay.
58.
My bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I never missed. I meant that was for the Manhattan crowd.
Oh, okay.
Now you said it twice.
Say it now.
God in me loves the God in you.
Yay!
Oh, I was listening to a Morehouse